Hang on one second, I'll tell you when we're live.
It's live. I see live.
All right, awesome. So we are going to start our broadcast and allow everybody in. And all right, so we are back with Empowering Women Entrepreneurs. Ayesha Hamilton and myself. I will just introduce both of us. Ayesha Hamilton is the owner at Hamilton Law, and she focuses her practice on employment law. And my name is Alisa McCabe, and I'm the owner at First Steps Financial, and we are a group of advanced certified QuickBooks online pro advisors. And we help small businesses to simplify processes, organize their finances, and gain sight into your business through your financials for good decisions. And we have the illustrious Danielle Gill with us from First Steps Financial, the magic maker of digital media for us, trying to help us keep our act together, and she gets us to behave. I also want you to know that all information for this webinar is general information purposes only. Basically, Ayesha and I are gathering. We're talking, and so good morning, Ayesha. How are you doing?
Good morning. Interesting that we have the stay-at-home order lifted, so we're trying to figure out what that means in terms of our offices, our client contact, but the discussion today, and I'm kind of excited to talk about this because I recently had an experience where I really had to sort of find every ounce of confidence in me to actually own my value. We're talking about how women, perhaps more than men, get asked to reduce their rates. When you're putting a proposal out, you're told, oh, that's too much. I recently had a client who is an existing client ask for a new retainer agreement. So we had an existing contract in place, and they said, will you give me, this is starting to become a much bigger issue. Will you consider changing the arrangement? And I said, no, but, let me think about it. And then I realized, you know what, there's some value in me saying I will work with you. So I said, all right. I get back to the guy the next morning and I said, all right, I'm happy to change it. Here's the retainer agreement, sign it, send it back. He comes back and he says, oh, well, the rate's too high. And I sort of said, well, let me think about it. And then he had all sorts of other permutation and combinations of, well, we could do it this way and we could do it this way. And I think one of the most empowering things for me was to say, let me think about it. I'll get back to you. And then I got out a piece of paper and literally said, well, if we do it this way, because he was proposing some really strange stuff. Oh. Every scenario did not work for me. Every scenario was in favor of the client. And so I finally got back to him a couple of hours and I said, you have a couple of options. You have the existing retainer, you have the retainer I've offered you, and you have the option of finding new counsel. I really, it took me a lot to get to the point of saying, I'm ready to walk away because this nickel and diming isn't working for me. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I really needed to think about, right, is at what point do I just say that's enough, right? Mm-hmm. No, this is what my value is. You're the one asking for a change, and I've gotten your case to a significant point where if you settled it today, you would walk away with a lot of money. But you're choosing not to. You're choosing to go after the bigger prize. Why is that risk on me, right? So Alisa, what do you do when somebody says to you, no, you're too expensive? Will you cut your rate for me?
Yeah, so, I think when I first started, I didn't have a defense in that. I didn't have, and maybe because my business was new and I was concerned about, oh, you know what, maybe I really don't know what I'm doing. And okay, I think we have that imposter syndrome and you feel like, oh my God, somebody saw through. And but in the last, I would say in the last few years, in the last probably 5 years, my defense is that that's how much we charge. And there's a few things that go along with it. I've started to realize that when someone questions the price that I give, they don't value what we do. Mm-hmm. And probably not a good fit. And someone did ask me, and it was a man, and he questioned me, and he's like, well, what's the difference? I have someone else who's giving me this price, and you're giving me this, and you're more. And I said, well, because we provide a different service. Even though, yeah, bookkeeping is bookkeeping, but when you have somebody who's watching out for you and knows the inside and outside of your business, that's different than somebody who's doing your books to do your taxes. Okay. It's completely different. So I had to really differentiate and show the value. In the end, I didn't get that client, and it worked out perfect because he wasn't a good fit. So it was okay. And I love what you said. If someone, because I think we're taken aback. We're like, someone questions us. We're like, oh, what? What do you mean? And what you said was, let me think about it. I'll get back to you. Give me some time to think about it and let me get back to you. And then providing them with options. Well, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this, or we cannot work together. And I think that's really very key in negotiating that situation. It's so funny because I feel like we do take different approaches to this as women. And I think, I asked my 20-something-year-old kids about, I asked my son and my daughter about this. Like, how do you feel about this? My son had a really interesting story, and I feel like it highlighted the difference between a man and a woman. He just started a brand new job. It was his first job out of college. He got hired someplace, amazing company. They gave him a mentor. First day, I'm like, oh, that's so cool. His mentor left. So now he has no mentor. And so I asked him, I said, did you negotiate? Like, what'd you do when you first started? He says, no, I didn't negotiate when I first started the job. He's like, I was new. I didn't have anything. He says, but now since I have no mentor, he said, I've been doing this all on my own with no mentor. He goes, I'm absolutely going to ask for a raise. And I thought, as a woman, we would never do that. We wouldn't even think of that's the situation to do it. We'd be like, oh, we don't have a mentor. We don't really know what we're doing.
I love that he did that. I love that.
I know, but why do not? So, and it's funny because, and he says, and I think everybody thinks I'm doing a good job. Why don't we as women assume that we're doing a good job?
Right.
Why don't we just?
As we were talking, we work twice as hard. We hustle twice as much so that we feel we're doing an adequate job. Right? And to present the impression that we're worth it, right? I know I do, and
I know
it's I think it's something every woman feels. It goes back to that imposter syndrome you said.
I know. Where the hell did that come from? Who started that?
And it's funny when you talked about, somebody saying, well, so-and-so's hourly rate is, $100 cheaper than yours. Alisa, I know the type of service you provide, right? A bookkeeper is not sending out information to their clients about the PPP loan, is not providing guidance on how to make sure you can actually get it forgiven, is not doing webinars, is not providing the education. That's the difference, right?
Yeah.
It's a huge, and I have gotten to the point where if somebody says to me, well, that's kind of a high hourly rate, I'll say, I encourage you to meet with other lawyers.
Yes.
It's fine, and it is about recognizing value. The only way you recognize my value is by playing the market. Go play the market, figure out what's out there, and then they call back, right?
Yeah. Did you ever have, I just want to tell everybody who's on, if you have any questions or comments or anything, put them in the chat box, and Danielle's going to be reading the chat box, and she's going to be pushy and tell us when people post things.
I just want to mention, we are getting some comments on our Facebook Live, and someone had mentioned that we should be interviewing the clients as much as they interview us.
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was a great point as to what you guys are talking about.
So on that point, and I love that point, right? I'm glad someone raised it. I have, as I've gone through my many years of practice now, in my head, I know who an A client, a B client, a C client, and a D client is. In my head, I know that an A client is someone that has a great issue that I really want to work for, that they sign the retainer and they pay on time. A B client is a great issue, but it's not my ideal retainer. The C's and the D's, right? So the C is they're not paying, but it's a case I took and I'm kind of stuck with it. And the D is the person who is never pays, gives me attitude, right? Is the case that I get out of bed and go, oh, I don't want to work on this. And I can recognize this case now as the person is sitting across from me. Actually, I can recognize that case when I'm doing a phone call. And I will quote a ridiculously high retainer that usually sends them away. Or I will say, you know what, I don't believe that I am the right client for you. I'm not the right fit.
Yeah. And that's a good term that I use too, is maybe we're not a good fit.
Yeah.
And I know, so it's funny, I have to tell you, I have kind of an opposite situation too, where in my industry, bookkeepers are typically women. CFOs are typically men. We bridge that gap because we are both CFO and bookkeeper. I was up against a male CFO for a position, my team was going to do. And I had spoken with the client. They were totally on board. They were even transitioning the owners. I met with both owners and they were so thrilled to be working with us. They had a board of directors and the board of directors said, no, we have to go with the man. And they didn't say the man, but they said this other person, and their fee was twice what mine was.
Oh,
I know. And I was like, and they asked me, they're like, the people I was speaking to, and they happened to be women. The person I was speaking to, who was the current owner, she said, how can you do it for less than he's doing it? I said, because we're more efficient. Because we are constantly learning new ways to provide the service better. And she was like, we really want to work with you, but we can't. And I thought, so what
the message from that is at some point they'll be back. At some point they will have learned their lesson and paid twice as much for that lesson. It's an expensive lesson.
Yeah. And I just feel like, I think sometimes, and men have no problem giving prices that, and they typically do. I mean, because I think women are seen as, I don't know, maybe subservient or as not as aggressive. But you know what? Are we afraid to be seen as aggressive? We don't want that label that we're loud or we're bitchy or we're...
I'm going to tell you a funny story. So there's a judge actually in New York State who's about to be removed from the bench because he called a female attorney a tough, the C word. And he complained about it, right? He said, what are you talking about? That's a compliment. I just meant she's a tough cookie, right? That's not the cookie wasn't the C word.
That wasn't the C word? Okay.
It wasn't the C word. But that's the
oh my God.
question, right? Is I don't ever want to be called that, but I do want to be perceived as tough. It's important that I be perceived as tough, right? It's important that you be perceived as someone who is aggressively protecting your client's assets. Is that what you're hired to do? But then there's that balance of, you know what? I mean, and I had to pull out the B in me to say to this other client who was nickel and diming me on the retainer. And I did say to him, what you're doing right now is affecting our attorney-client relationship. So I think it's important that we put a close to this conversation. You have the three choices in front of you. You think about it, talk to your wife, and get back to me. But I don't think that this continuing nitpicking at my retainer agreement is going to work. It certainly is.
That's really good. I love it that you said, pull out the bee in me. I love that.
I'm going to get a t-shirt.
Don't pull out the bee in me. I love that. And you know what? I agree with that, because I think we do have to provide that we are tough, that, don't mess with me. And I think if we give that persona, and I don't necessarily believe that it has to be bitchy, because I think bitchy is something different. I really think, in my mind anyway, someone who's bitchy is a complainer. And nobody likes that.
Yeah, and a whiner. That's not what we, and I'm not saying,
patience,
don't make, I'm saying it's okay to question the retainer. It's okay to have a conversation about it, but there comes a point where we're done negotiating. I mean, we were down to the point of negotiating half a percentage point. And I was like, no, I'm sorry. Like, I would rather walk away from this representation than give you any more. I would really have done that.
It sets a tone. It sets a tone for the relationship. And I've also found that, and I wonder, and this was interesting that I read, someone said all the financials can look right and say, this is the right thing to do. But if you have a gut instinct that tells you it's not,
walk away.
Follow your gut instinct. And I think that women are more likely to follow the gut instincts than men.
That's right.
We live a lot by our feelings, in the sense that we, good and bad, we are maybe more sensitive to people on our team, or to our clients, or to our family. And then sometimes we're too sensitive, and we don't use we lose our value. Right. We forget how valuable we are. I mean, I do have to laugh. My kids would always tell me that their friends were afraid of me. And I would laugh. I'd be like, me, I'm so soft and nice. And I think it was more that, like, I held a higher standard, and they were afraid to disappoint me, or,
that I do want to be perceived as.
Me too. Like, yeah, I'm okay with that. So, so one of the things that I was talking with Michelle Baker from Baker Designs yesterday, and we were having a discussion about women and our value and our power. And she said, we have to stop saying, I'm sorry.
That's right.
And she said, my husband actually called me out on it. When something happens and I go, I'm sorry, he goes, why are you apologizing for it? And I thought, oh my God. And I didn't realize this, as I have 3 daughters, and I have 2 that have I don't know, like a more pleasing personality, like in the sense they're pleasers. So they both apologize. And I tell them, stop saying I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. No. Don't apologize for saying I'm sorry. Like, I'm
going to add a proviso. I do this all the time. I do apologize. The proviso is I use the sorry to diffuse the situation, to say, to soften the blow, but I don't actually feel sorry. Okay, and that's the proviso, is
I love it.
I'm so sorry, I cannot negotiate this anymore. We're done. But I'm not sorry about it, because I'm holding the line. Right. So there's a difference.
A good way to use it.
Use the sorry to your advantage. I do. I will use I'm so sorry, I can't do this for you. I'm so sorry. If it's the genuinely, I'm sorry I'm late, of course, I'm sorry I'm late. But if it's I'm using the sorry to get my point across, there's a difference between using it and actually feeling it. And I do tell my daughter that. I don't have a problem with you saying I'm sorry. I have a problem with you feeling I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Don't
in
feel it.
Where it doesn't warrant it.
Right. And you shouldn't, you know, and you don't use the I'm sorry all the time, right? But you use it when, I think there's a lot of situations in my negotiations where the other side needs to feel that they have the upper hand. I'm okay with letting them feel that to get them to where I need to be.
I wonder, that's interesting. What a good negotiation technique.
You know, I don't mind being perceived as subservient if you agree to my number. Right?
But isn't that the ultimate of being a woman? Is getting people to do what you want them to do without them realizing that that's what they're doing.
Right. And if they need to feel powerful to do that, and I need to let them feel that, I've had times where I have let an attorney yell at me on the phone, yell at me. And I will just sit there quietly, and then I will go back, and between me and my client, we will never negotiate for the numbers they want. Never.
Yeah.
They will never see the type of concession, right? But he needed to feel like a big man yelling at me. I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. You know, I went into court and wiped his face with that. Right? And
that's the best.
That's the best. And so sometimes you look at, how do I give this person what they need to feel so that I get what I need?
Oh, that's okay. So, you know, that's the other thing I was thinking about. So we were talking about what's our value and sticking to our guns. And I think our value is that women are much more intuitive. And that, I know that's a broad stroke. I realize that. In general, I do believe that women just have that innate quality of being intuitive about things and knowing things and using that in that situation where, you know, okay, I gotta let this person have their way and yell and get it all out or feel more powerful. And then using the situation to still get our point across, hold the line. Oh, I like that. Okay, I'm adding that to my little bucket list of things that I'm gonna do. The other thing, so someone said to me that women don't ask for as much as men because we don't understand money. What do you think about that statement? Don't be shy. Tell us.
So I think that you and I, as business owners, and any one of the women on this call, right, or anyone watching this, we get what it takes to run a business, how much money you need to have in the bank, and essentially how to stay not in the red, right? How to make sure that you're not losing money. The question then is, are we not making as much money because we're not owning our entitlement to make a chunky profit, right? And is that the difference? It's not that we don't understand money. It's that, do we not have enough in terms of confidence to say, I have the right to actually make a lot of money? I don't ever hear a guy saying, I don't have the right to make a lot of money.
I'm not entitled to make, I shouldn't make this.
Not entitled to make a lot of money? That's bullshit. You know, and I will tell you, I have women attorneys that I talk to who are in their own businesses like me, right? They set the rules, they call the numbers, and their hourly rate is a lot lower than mine. And I say, why do you do that? Well, you know, the clients, they can't afford to pay more than that. And I said, well, you have a really impressive pedigree. You are really well known. You are really owning your industry. The clients will pay that.
Right? Yes. They'll pay for that experience.
Yeah. And I think she thinks of it as a clients can't afford me issue. I think of it as if they want you, they will pay that.
They'll find the money. I mean, seriously, if you want an expert, like seriously, if you're going in for brain surgery, are you going to go with the cheapest one? Or are you going to go with the best one?
Right.
And it doesn't matter what they'll cost. You're going to find it because that's the best.
And it ties really well to our topic for next week, right?
I know.
How do you make sure that people understand that you are the best one.
Yeah. And so just so you know, we have a few more minutes, but next week we're going to be talking about let it be known who you are. Don't be judged by your outward appearance. And we're going to talk about, you know, sometimes we as women feel like we have to work twice as hard to just come to par. And so not letting people see us as, well, you were hired because you're a woman. You were hired because you're a minority. You fill this slot. Thank you so much. And like degrading my value. So Lisa Snyder said, do you think there are more and larger requests now for pricing reductions compared to pre-lockdown? And I hope you don't mind, we actually have encountered this. And the way that we've handled it is we actually reached out to our clients and preemptively and said, look, if you're having any problems, let us know. Actually, we kind of already know because we know you're booked. So let us know. And so the way that we handled it was that we took whatever they felt they needed to be reduced by. If their sales were reduced by 20% or whatever it was, we reduced our fee and we put our fee out over the next several months.
Wow.
So that they could, during this time of lockdown, when they were having problems, when they couldn't make revenue, we knew it was going to open up eventually, until we put it off and spread it out over the next few months. So it wouldn't be a huge burden, because the mortgage companies, I don't know if you saw what their solution was, but they said, like, you don't have to pay your mortgage this month or next month, but those 2 months will be due in the third month. Where are you supposed to come up with that money?
It's absurd.
Yeah. So we didn't do that. But are you seeing more requests for reduced?
I am. I'm seeing a lot of requests, what essentially amounts to free advice. Now, I will tell you, I'm giving it, right? Because if there's questions about unemployment compensation, there's questions about the, PPP loan, I send them to you. If there's questions about, how do I
do the same. Unemployment, they go to you.
And
talk to Ayesha.
How do we manage this? I have done a lot of just conversations with people to say, look, I'm happy to help you work through it. And it's one phone call. It's not a big deal.
And if it becomes more than that, then it's,
Then you sort of, say, okay, well, we had our discussion, but if you need more, you need to retain the firm. And this is what that looks like. And I think that goes back to saying, the world is in crisis right now. I'm okay doing my part to help you, but I'm not going to let you take advantage, right? And I have had people who I went on a BNI call and did the 10-minute presentation and gave some advice. And then I made the mistake of saying, feel free to call me if you have additional questions that you didn't feel comfortable asking on the call. And it wasn't a mistake, because a couple people called and they were perfectly fine. One person called 9 times. 9 times. Now that person, I finally on the 9th call had to say, I'm sorry, we've gone way above the scope of what I meant by give me a call and I'm happy to chat. To the extent that she was like, well, will you let me know when the application for unemployment benefits for gig workers goes online? And I said, no, like, I'm not tracking that for you. Go ahead and check every day.
That's the person I want to say, I'm not your mother.
Right. And I had to have that conversation nicely. But most people don't do that, right? So most times, and I know you encounter this, it's just, okay, I'm happy to help you if we can do a phone call. It's not an issue. And that's our part that we do.
Yeah, and I actually get annoyed with people who are constantly like, well, I have to charge you for that. I feel like I give away a lot of free advice. I do. I just, I don't know. I feel like I put it out there and the universe pays me back. We are like 2 minutes over, but I do just want to reiterate some of the things that I wrote down while we were talking, because I thought they were cool. About our value. Someone comes up against you and says, like, questions your price, say, let me think about it and get back to them, and then come back with options. We need to start pulling out the B in me, and we need to use sorry to our advantage. instead of, and I was looking at it as it was a disadvantage, but if we are, and a lot of people are predisposed to saying, I'm sorry, let's use that, like you said, to your advantage. You don't have to always feel that way, but use it maybe to be able to get your point across, because maybe somebody can't hear it until you say that. So that was awesome.
That was fun.
So Danielle, was there any other comments online that we didn't get to?
There was a couple, on the whole sorry talk. They said that sorry feelings can lead to guilt, and we are not guilty. So I think that went along with what Ayesha was saying, is that you can use it to your advantage as long as you're not feeling it.
Yeah. I like that. Oh, that's really good. One quick question. Ayesha, what did the client you talked about do?
Oh, he retained me. I mean, he could have walked away, right? Yeah. I made that very clear. And actually, I made that very clear part of the conversation of, you're hurting our relationship at this point. And that's when he stopped, and he said, no problem. Some people look at these negotiations as games. I don't. You're messing with my livelihood. It's not funny. It's not a game. And I will hold the line on my value.
Thank you so much for talking this morning. I love talking with you every week. This is so much fun. And we're going to be back next Thursday, 8:25. Sorry, everybody, we're only giving you a minute to commute to work today. So take care, everybody. Have a great week.
Have a great week. Bye.
Bye-bye.